Good morning, students. Last class we are discussed about the ecological niche. In ecological niche, we can call it as a micro habitat where there only one organism can live in a same habitat. No, not two animals or animals or two living organisms cannot live in a same habitat. We can call it as a micro habitat. We are discussing about the example. In example, we are discussed about one of the example is the dung beetle. What they are doing, they make the soil balls, and the female dung beetle lays eggs on there. So what they play a role, they make the balls, soil balls, small soil balls, and they make their own habitat, means it is a micro habitat. And what female dung beetle, what she play a role in this micro habitat, they lay the eggs. She lays the eggs on that soil balls, and they survive on that living place, or we can call it as a micro habitat. It is one of the example of dung beetle. There are so many examples like lion, tiger. They are interrelated with each other, but the living place is different, and depending upon their food, the habitat is very different. And as we discussed, no one can no two animals, there is no habitat where micro habitat, or we can call it as ecological niche, can live in one place or in one micro habitat, because there is a lot of competition in that organisms. If both are live together, they are not dependent on each other because of their type of food or mode of nutrition is different. So they can live in a same habitat, but they are not dependent with each other. So they can live in a single place. But if their food is same, so they cannot live in a same habitat. And then next is the characteristic or importance of the ecological niche. We are discussed about that characteristic and the importance. Why it is important to live require a microhabitat? Because the species or the organisms can survive very well with their surrounding environment, with their availability of food, air, light. So they can live in a very ample amount of their requirements. Okay. Then next is we discussed about the ecological niche. Their types. First one is the special niche. Second one is the trophic niche, and third one is the fundamental niche. The special niche means the organisms occupied their whole area. Means only one can live in the same habitat. Okay. Then they occupy the microhabitat, means the small living place. Okay. Then next is the trophic niche. Trophic niche means where organisms can divide it into, or it is characterized by the trophic level. They are live in their trophic level. In that, where the animals are some are the producers, some are the carnivores, some are the decomposers, and some are the consumers. They are in a trophic level niche, or we can call it as a trophic niche. Third one is the fundamental niche. Fundamental niche means it is we can call it as a multi-dimensional niche. In that niche, the organisms are potentially survive. Means they are in a very less amount of the availability of food or the place is very less, so they are potentially survive, and the food value or the food or the living requirements, the requirements of that air, light and the food is very less, so they are potentially survive in that ecological niche, or the we can call it as the micro, we can call it as a micro habitat. And then today we are discussed about our next beat is the niche, width and overlap. Today we are discussing about the niche, width or overlap. Width we can call it as the breadth also. Two words are there, width and the breadth in a ecological niche. So first they both are depending upon each other, the width and the overlap. We are discussed this with the help of the graph. So there are two types of organisms. It is first and it is second. They are very different, but some of the living organisms in that case, some of the living organisms share their food or the space in that micro habitat, or we can call it as a ecological niche. So what is niche width? The distance between means the first type of organisms where which this is the width of the living organism. This is the width of living organism of first, and this is the width of living organism of second animal or the second animal community. This is the first where width is measured with this, and second is this width, the niche width. Or the second one is the niche overlap. We can see this shaded area. This is overlapping between first and second. This area is which we called it as the overlapping area. So we can call it as the overlap. So two terms are there. First one is overlap, this niche overlap, and the niche width. How we can say that it is overlap, or how we can call it as the width in the two living organisms, depending upon their food or depending upon the trophic level of that species. Okay, how we can call it as this? In case of this graph, there we can draw another diagram where This is called as the overlap, where what happens when overlap takes place, because the microhabitat having the same animal, two animals, they are living in a same habitat. In that, the area where two animals survive in that place, where this is called as the overlapping area, where we can call it as a carnivorous animal, or here we can call it as a herbivorous animal. Here we can call it as the herbivorous animal. It is a carnivorous animals and it is a herbivorous animals. They are living in a same habitat or same living organism. Where overlap takes place, where carnivorous feed on herbivorous. So this is level where high competition is there, where the overlap takes place with the high competition. It is a one case of niche build and the niche overlap. Then second case is the where there is the two organisms living in the same microhabitat, but their type of food is different. Okay, some are living in this place is the some are herbivorous, some are carnivorous, or some are the decomposers. So in this case there is no any overlap. Zero overlap is there. Zero overlap is there. So in this case there is no overlap, so there is no competition in that micro habitat. There is no any competition in that micro habitat. So this is the width of that niche. This is the width of that niche. In this case there is no overlap, so in another way we can draw this as this. This is first and this is second, and there is no competition. There is no any competition in that place. So this is one case of the ecological niche or niche width and the niche overlap. There is no overlap in this case. Means there is no overlap in this case. The food type is totally different because they are living in a same micro habitat. They are live in the same microhabitat, so that's why there is no competition in between this living habitat or the ecological niche, or we can call it as the micro habitat. This is the second case we discussed here. Then third case is the in fundamental niche. In case of fundamental niche width and niche overlap takes place because there is a high competition in that ecological niche. So how we can determine the niche width and the niche overlap. So this is the first species or first living organism, and this is the second, where there is a high competition in that place. There is a high competition in that place. The niche width is this. This is the niche width of the first animal, and this is the niche width of the second animal. This is first animal niche width, and this is the second animal niche width. Where this top is what we can call as overlap. The overlap is very high in that place. Overlap is very high in that place because of why? There is a lot of competition in that place, so overlap is high. How we can draw this line? Exact. This is, and this is the second. This is first animal and this is the second animal, where there is a high competition in that place, where the niche overlap is also high. Why? Because there is a high competition in that place. So there is a high competition means availability of food is less, light is less, and the air and the water is also less. Because of that, there is a high competition in this habitat. More than two animals or more than two living organisms are living together in a micro habitat, so there is a high competition in that the fundamental niche. So there is a requirement of their requirements is high, so they are depending upon each other. In this place, the living organisms may be carnivorous, may be herbivorous, may be the decomposers, or may be the consumers. They are depending upon each other. So there is no ample amount of food. So tiger feed on deer, or deer feed on the producers. So they are interrelated with each other. They are depending upon each other, and that's why there is a high competition in that place. So we measured in the term is called it as a niche width and the niche overlap. These both are dependent upon each other, where the niche width means living organisms area occupied by the living organisms, or in a first species or living organism, and the second one is the space occupied by the living organisms. We can measure the in case of the niche width. Or overlap means where same animal is living in a one place, where the same animal living in the same microhabitat, or we can call it as a niche. We can call it as a niche in a same microhabitat, where the overlap means where they are sharing their food, or they are depending upon each other, where the overlap takes place. Where the overlap takes place, there is a high competition in that place, and there is no any sharing of food, or the food type is different, so there is no any overlap, or there is zero competition in that place, where the fulfillment of their need is very well, and the ample amount of food, air and the water and the light is there. So there where there is a mode of food, or the mode of nutrition, or the type of food is different, so they are not dependent upon each other. So in same habitat they are living together, but they are not the competitors as we would like the competitors. Where in this type, or there are two cases where the competitors are less, the overlap is also less, and where the competitors are high, so overlap is also high. So that's why this niche width and the requirement of this niche width and the niche overlap is very well described there, because in ecological niche, where the living organisms living in the same habitat, but it is not happening in all cases, because we are discussed about the ecological niche, where the living organisms living together but not in a same habitat, or two animals, two types of animals, or two animals, two different kind of animals are not living in one place. So we are concluding here. Your first chapter is now completed. First chapter is a ecological, in ecology and environmental pollution, where in ecology there are first two units. In first unit, where the habitat and niche, habitat and the ecological niche is your first chapter here completed, where we are discussed about in habitat. We discussed about the concept. Concept means a definition and the characteristic, and we are discussed about the type of habitat, where we started the freshwater habitat, marine water habitat, terrestrial habitat, and the estuaries with their characteristic and with their example. So example and the zones and their stratification of each habitat we are discussed in very well. Okay, and then next is the ecological niche, where we discuss their example, their characteristic, or the importance of ecological niche, and the types of ecological niche, where the first type is the spatial niche, second type is the trophic niche, and third type is the fundamental niche, and the third one is last bit of the first chapter is the ecological niche width or the niche overlap. We are discussing in today's lecture. So here I conclude that your first chapter is completed here. So next chapter will be started on tomorrow's lecture or the next lecture. Okay, and another thing I want to share with you is, if you watching lectures, if you want to download from YouTube, so I will give you how to download these videos in your mobile. When you watch this video on YouTube, there is no option for download. Okay, the option for download is there, but it is temporary. But if you want to save these videos in your mobile, so go through your mobile app, Google Chrome, where YouTube is there. So another option is there, where I shared this link, copy this link, and there here it is started with Y, where I share this links started with Y. You have to insert only yes. small ss and click on here option is there, click on this. So you have your mobile new tab is open, called it as same from name. Okay, and here you can download the online videos from Chrome or the YouTube. Okay, if you want to watch this video, so you can download it and watch. Okay, thank you. Next class we will discuss about your next chapter. Thank you.